I was never supposed to end up with someone like Maya. At least, that's what everyone made sure I knew from the beginning. Her parents, her friends, even strangers who didn't know the full story. To them, I was just the poor kid from the wrong part of town, with calloused hands, second-hand shoes, and dreams that sounded more like delusions. Maya, on the other hand, was the picture of perfection. Private school education, wealthy, well-known parents, always dressed like she walked off a magazine cover, with that effortless beauty that turned heads wherever she went. And me, I was the kid who delivered newspapers before school and fixed bikes after. But somehow, against every odd, we fell in love. We met in our final year of high school. I was working part-time at a coffee shop. She came in one evening, drenched from the rain, frustrated because her driver had cancelled on her. I offered her a towel and a free latte. She smiled and said, "You're not like the others." I didn't know what she meant at the time, but that smile, it stuck with me. She came back the next day, and the day after that. We started talking about books, music, movies. She said she admired how hard I worked. I told her I admired how curious she was about the world. We were from different worlds, but in each other. We found something neither of us had known we needed. The first signs of trouble, when Maya introduced me to her parents. I'll never forget the look on her father's face. It was like someone had handed him a math equation that didn't add up. "And what do your parents do?" he asked, already sipping his expensive wine like he knew the answer would bore him. "My mom works as a home nurse," I said, "and my dad passed away when I was 11. He didn't offer condolences. He just nodded stiffly and moved on to asking Maya how her law school applications were going. Her mother was even less subtle. She pulled Maya aside in the hallway and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "This phase won't last. You'll thank me later." It hurt, of course it did, but Maya squeezed my hand tighter that night than she ever had before. "They'll come around," she whispered. "They just don't know you yet." I wanted to believe her. Cracks in the foundation. The first real argument between Maya and me came 6 months into our relationship. I had taken on extra shifts at a warehouse during the holidays and missed a dinner she had planned. Her friends, who already thought I was beneath her, were quick to pounce. "He doesn't respect your time." One of them said, "He's always working." That's not ambition, that's desperation. They didn't understand. I wasn't trying to impress them. I was trying to build something for us. I didn't want to be the guy who always had to say no, because he couldn't afford a movie ticket or a weekend trip. I told Maya that, but instead of support, she said something that strung more than anything I'd heard before. "I just want you to be present. It's like you're trying to prove something all the time." She wasn't wrong. I was trying to prove something. I just didn't realize yet how badly I needed to. The break that broke me. A year and a half into our relationship, Maya got accepted into a prestigious grad program in another city. I offered to move with her, find work, support her while she studied, but her parents stepped in. "He'll hold you back," her father told her. "He can't keep up." They weren't just interfering. They were planting doubts, and slowly those doubts took root. One night, after weeks of cold distance, Maya sat me down. "I think we need a break," she said. I asked her if this was her choice or her parents' influence. She hesitated, and that silence was louder than any answer she could have given. Rebuilding from the rubble. The break didn't just hurt, it broke me. Not because she left, but because of why she did. I wasn't enough. That's what everyone had said from the beginning. And now it felt like she had finally agreed with them. But instead of spiraling, I made a decision. If I wasn't enough for her, or her world then, I'd become someone who was enough for me. It was time to stop proving myself to others and start building a life that I could be proud of. After Maya walked away, I stopped waiting for closure. I stopped checking my phone for her messages. I didn't stalk her new photos or look at her friends' stories to see if she had moved on, because I knew she had. So I turned inward. I got up at 5 a.m. every day, first for the warehouse, then evening shifts at a garage. On weekends, I taught myself coding using borrowed books from the library and free online tutorials. Every night, I went to bed exhausted, not from heartbreak, but from hustle. For the first time in years, I wasn't doing it to prove anything to anyone. I was building my life, not chasing someone else's approval. The small wins that felt like mountains. 3 months after the breakup, I launched my first freelance gig online, fixing broken websites for clients who didn't care where I came from, only that I could deliver. Then came more gigs, then contracts. Eventually, I started my own small business, offering web development for local companies. I was still wearing the same old hoodie and using a used laptop, but for the first time, I was earning money through something I had created. Nobody clapped. No one posted about it. There was no "proud of you" text from Maya, or "we were wrong" call from her parents. But I didn't need that anymore. Each small win was mine. Quiet, steady victories in a life that had always been loud with rejection. The letter I never sent. One night, after an especially long day, I sat down and wrote Maya a letter. I never planned to send it, but I needed to say the things I hadn't been able to when she walked out. "You never owed me forever, Maya, but I wish you hadn't let them decide I wasn't worth the fight. Maybe I wasn't enough for you back then, but I've finally realized I was never supposed to be enough for them, just for myself." I folded it, put it in a drawer, and went back to work, seeing her again. 2 years passed. By then, I had a small team working under me. We had a solid client list, and I'd even been invited to speak at a local entrepreneur event. Not a big one, just a small gathering of community builders and self-starters. And that's where I saw her, Maya. She was there as part of her firm's outreach program, still elegant, still carrying herself with that familiar grace. But something about her seemed different, quieter, more reflective. She came up to me after I spoke, smiled nervously. "You've changed," she said. I nodded. I had to. We made small talk. No accusations, no bitterness. Just two people who had once been in love, standing on opposite ends of the same dream. The apology that didn't heal, but helped. Before she left, Maya said something I wasn't prepared for. "I never told you, but I regretted walking away. I listened to voices I shouldn't have. And I've thought about you a lot. It should have been satisfying. It should have made me feel like I had won. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole, because I realized I didn't need her apology to move on. I'd already done that work myself. She had been a chapter, an important one, but not the ending. Seeing Maya again didn't unravel me. It didn't throw me back into old fantasies or stir up buried hopes. Instead, it gave me clarity. I didn't want her back. What I wanted was to keep becoming the kind of man who no longer needed validation from anyone who couldn't see my worth from the start. So I doubled down on growth, not just professionally, but personally. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to carry unhealed wounds into the future. I joined a local mentorship program, helping kids from rough backgrounds learn basic tech skills. I hired my cousin, who had just gotten out of rehab, and trained him to work on our client systems. I stopped chasing success for revenge and started building success that meant something. The first time I said I was proud of me. One evening, after wrapping up a project that would net our company more in 1 month than I used to make in a year, I sat alone on my apartment balcony, watching the city lights flicker. I thought of my father, how he used to say, "Make sure you build something they can't take away from you." And I realized I had not just money, not just a business, but a mindset, a self-worth that wasn't fragile or conditional. That night, I said it out loud, just to hear how it sounded. "I'm proud of you." I didn't need anyone else to say it. When the tables turned, one day, about a year after that night, I got an email from Maya. Subject line, "Can we talk?" She wrote that she had been following my journey through mutual connections, that she was inspired by how far I'd come, that she had left her family's firm and was now working with a non-profit. She said she missed me, that she had never stopped believing in who I could become. But here's the thing. I didn't respond, not because I was bitter, not because I hated her, but because I had finally arrived at a place where I didn't need her admiration to feel complete. She had let go when I needed someone to hold on. And while I forgave her, I wasn't going to rewrite my story just because she had found her way back. A love that chose me back. Months later, I met Lena. She wasn't flashy. She didn't care about brands or backgrounds. She was working on her own startup, juggling side jobs, and had a laugh that made you forget your worries. When I told her my story, she didn't flinch. She said, "Good, now you know who you are." Most people never get that far. With Lena, I didn't have to prove anything. I could just be. And that's when I learned one of the most powerful relationship truths. The right person doesn't complete you. They complement the self you've already built. The message I did send. A year into dating Lena, I finally replied to Maya's message. Just a single line. "Thank you for being part of the story that led me here." No bitterness, no blame. Just peace. Because in the end, the boy who wasn't good enough, he became a man who finally realized he didn't need to be. Success wasn't a straight line. Even after building a business, finding love, and healing old wounds, I still had to face the toughest battle of all, forgiving myself, not for loving Maya, not for failing in the eyes of others, but for all the times I believed them, for all the nights I stared at my ceiling wondering if maybe they were right, for shrinking myself to fit into someone else's version of worthy. It's easy to prove people wrong. It's harder to unlearn the belief that you were ever less than to begin with. So I started writing down affirmations, things I wished I had known at 19, when I was being sized up by people who couldn't see past their prejudices. You are not your bank balance. You don't need a degree to have value. You deserve love without preconditions. These weren't motivational fluff. They were truths I had earned, and I knew if I had needed them, someone else probably did too. So I began sharing my story online. The story becomes bigger than me. It started with a blog post, then a podcast interview, then a TEDx talk on redefining worth in a world obsessed with appearances. Suddenly, messages began pouring in from people who had been rejected, belittled, underestimated. A single mom who left an abusive marriage and built her own bakery. A dropout who created an online art community, now helping thousands express themselves. A teenager who said, "Your story made me believe I wasn't broken, just not done growing yet." That's when I realized what once felt like my greatest failure had become someone else's survival guide. Maya's parents saw me again. A couple of years later, I was invited to speak at a regional business event. After the talk, a couple approached me. It was Maya's parents. Her dad extended his hand. "You proved us wrong," he said, "and I'm sorry we didn't see your potential." His wife nodded. "We were too focused on the wrong things." They looked humbled, not because of what I had achieved, but because of the man I had become. And in that moment, I didn't feel anger, just a quiet kind of pride. I smiled and said, "I'm glad you came." That was it. No need to rub it in. No point in replaying the past. As the years went by, my life began to change in ways I never imagined. The business expanded, and I became a mentor for others who felt like I once did, overlooked, underestimated, and wondering if they would ever find their place in the world. Lena and I built a home together, not just with bricks and furniture, but with values, hard work, compassion, and a deep belief in each other's dreams. And I didn't just stay in the tech industry. I ventured into writing, motivational speaking, and coaching. I started my own foundation to help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds learn the skills I had once fought so hard to master. But the greatest reward of all, the legacy I was building, wasn't just about financial success or recognition. It was about the belief I had once lacked. It was about proving that we don't need anyone's permission to be worthy. We only need to believe in ourselves, even when the world says otherwise. The moment that changed everything. One evening, I was sitting on the porch of our house, a glass of wine in hand, just reflecting on everything that had brought me here. Then Lena walked over, looking at me with that familiar smile. "You know," she said, sitting beside me, "I used to wonder what you'd become. But now, seeing who you are, I'm proud of you. Not because of what you've done, but because of the person you've become." That was the moment I realized something important. Success wasn't about proving others wrong. It wasn't about being good enough for anyone else. Success, in its truest form, is about finding peace with who you are, without needing anyone else's approval. It's about waking up each day and knowing you're doing the work that fulfills you, that gives back to others, and that aligns with your true values. The full circle. A few months after, I received that unexpected message from Maya. I thought of the lessons I'd learned. I didn't regret the past. I had no resentment. If anything, I was thankful for those challenges. They were the crucible that shaped me into the man I had become. I learned that people's opinions of you can only hold weight if you let them. They might tell you who you are, but they don't define who you become. I learned that love doesn't demand perfection. It demands growth, vulnerability, and truth. And I learned that when you stop trying to prove you're good enough for others, you'll discover that you were already good enough all along. Closing thoughts. As I look back on the journey, from the pain of rejection to the hustle of proving myself, to the quiet moments of acceptance and love, I can confidently say this. If you feel like you're not enough right now, know this: you are. You're enough in this moment. You don't need anyone else to tell you that. Start building your life from a place of self-worth, not from a place of self-doubt. The world may not always see your potential, but you have to. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to grow, willing to rise above the limitations others place on you, willing to break free from the fear of rejection. And most importantly, you have to be willing to believe in yourself. Because when you do, you'll become the person who doesn't just prove others wrong. You prove yourself right. This is the full story of my journey to becoming the man I am today. And if you're reading this, remember, you have the power to transform your life too. Thank you for being part of my story.